If there's one thing we've learned about 2025 for Pokemon collecting, it was that it was an absolute mess for Pokemon cards. Literally, within the first month of 2025, we had prismatic evolutions for selling nearly double retail price as people all across the world started to get into Pokemon cards much more than they did before. Now, there's a lot of reasons why this newfound Pokemon demand was so strong, but the links with Pokemon TCG Pocket are definitely something to keep an eye on, along with having two sets released in 2025 that changed the game. Firstly, Prismatic Evolutions released in January of 2025, and this ticked all the hype boxes that you'd expect. It was an EV themed set, it had 32 special illustration rares, it had Master Ball Hollows, which were coming to the English TCG for the first time, which honestly, people were hyped for that initially, but now collectors are not really happy with it because they find it a little bit lazy, along with everyone agreeing that, like, you know, there was different ways to add rarities rather than just adding a special Master Ball pattern on a card. Now, I mean, the next set that we need to talk about for 2025 was Destined Rivals, which was released in May of 2025. Now, this honestly was like a very nostalgia-driven set and had very heavy connections with Team Rocket and Mewtwo, which, you know, is a super memorable point for a lot of fans. I mean, Team Rocket isn't even that explored that much in the newer games anymore, and Team Rocket is such a huge throwback to older collectors and fans. Now, these two sets alone were some of the biggest driving forces behind the crazy Pokemon card demand of 2025, and of course, you did also have a few more sets sprinkled in between, but none of these really had the same impact as these two in particular. Though 2026 is now around the corner, and the question really comes in whether or not Pokemon cards will maintain this demand, and one of the main focal points of 2026 is the 30th anniversary, though, you know, is that gonna be enough to keep up with this huge buzz that's being created? I mean, one of the areas we need to discuss is this perfect buzz scenario, and that's really what happened with that huge kind of, you know, Pokemon TCG Pocket, Prismatic Evolutions, and, you know, Destined Rivals all coming, you know, within like a 6 to 7 month period of one another. And that's what put Pokemon cards back on the map. And when I think of the future for Pokemon collecting and Pokemon cards, you know, you had so many things go right. And whether or not that's just chance, I mean, who knows? But like, you know, when people became, you know, collecting Pokemon cards all the way back, you know, back in 2020, you know, you had obviously the pandemic make people be indoors a lot more. People started collecting Pokemon cards all at the same time, and it was like a perfect storm scenario. Then, of course, for 2025, you had Pokemon TCG Pocket, which was like a huge new game. You had all these new sets released, and people just became very, very excited about Pokemon cards once again. Now, if we do go in a little bit more of a quiet period for 2026 and things aren't as exciting as they once were, I mean, can we expect that, you know, in another 4 years from today, or if there is a 35th anniversary set, is that gonna spike a lot of interest back in Pokemon cards like what just recently happened? I mean, even when I'm saying that out loud, it seems so unlikely because so many things went right to cause, you know, the spike of what we saw in 2025. But, you know, there's actually a few collectibles we need to look into to see what Pokemon cards are really moving the needle right now. All right, so one that's really kind of going a little bit down right now is the Team Rocket's Mewtwo. And I think this is an interesting card right now to kind of focus on because like I was saying, we had that huge, you know, Team Rocket set. We're going into a Mega Evolution, or we've entered the Mega Evolution era, but check out this Team Rocket's Mewtwo, okay? Selling for 583 USD, you know, just in late October, you know, and it's fallen pretty sharply to $518, you know, quite quickly, okay, in a matter of like 2 weeks. I think what may be a cause of this and why some cards are dropping. Firstly, you had just too much boom happen. But also, I do think that there is a lot of, you know, like I've always mentioned that 2025 had this. There was a naivety that came in the hobby. And a lot of people say there was like sneaker resellers. I don't know if that actually happened. I don't know where that kind of story came from. I'm not into sneakers myself, or like I don't know much about it. I mean, I was when I was like younger, but not anymore. I mean, if you were collecting sneakers and you moved on to Pokemon cards this year, let me know. But I do know, just, you know, especially when I look at my channel and I read the comments and all this, I do know that, you know, there is so many people entering the hobby every day because every single video like that I make, there's always one person that says, hey man, thanks, like your videos are really easy to understand. I'm new to the hobby. This has been a really good channel for me to get into. Or, oh man, I just started collecting again and you know, this has been like a really easy way for me to learn about the hobby. And the reason why I feel like there's so many new people is just like literally, I mean, I think I'm in a bit of a unique position because, you know, I make content and I see the comments, I see what's kind of going on and I'm just like, wow, why are there so many new people coming in? Like, what's driving people to Pokemon cards? That's something that I really, really am interested in right now because it's not just like, sure, I mean, I'm trying to piece the puzzles together. You know, I do think Pokemon TCG Pocket's huge. I do think the prices of Pokemon cards is a big reason as well. I do think as well that we're getting like, you know, Wall Street Journal articles saying that, you know, Pokemon cards are a hot investment and they're outperforming, you know, crazy traditional mainstream investing forms. I think that's brought people in. I think people have just like, instead of just peeking from the sidelines, people are like, hey, I want to play this game. You know, I don't want to be a spectator. I want to be a player. And so people are now jumping into the hobby. And this is really cool. And I think it's a weird thing to see because, you know, I've even seen examples of people who don't really know anything about Pokemon who are now collecting Pokemon cards. And to me, that's crazy because it's like, wow, you're actually spending money on collectibles that you have no connection to. And you are just kind of like, nah, these are gonna be like, you know, expensive. I don't know the thought process that's happening. And I mean, there's nothing really wrong if you don't love Pokemon and you've started collecting cards because you can learn that, okay? I mean, you can start playing the games or you can start, you know, going through sets. I mean, it's a hobby at the end of the day. And then like a big actual lesson for everyone is you don't need to be good at your hobbies to enjoy something. So, you know, a lot of people say like, you know, I've just recently picked up surfing again, okay? And I mean, I'm not exactly good at it. But, you know, every time I go out surfing, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm seeing all these people surfing. They're just like absolutely crushing it in the water, dude. They're like surfing beyond belief. And I'm just like doing that. And I'm struggling to get on my board. And, you know, I just keep getting like hit down by the wave. And then I'm like just going again. But the thing is, I'm having so much fun doing it. And I'm just thinking, I don't have to be that good to enjoy my hobbies. And I think same thing, if you just entered Pokemon cards and you're interested in them, but you know, you don't understand Pokemon, you know, a lot of people will be like, oh, you know, you don't even love Pokemon, you're not a real fan. Well, guess what? You can learn it. You know what I mean? Just like anything in life, you can learn Pokemon, you can learn the hobby, you can learn everything about it. But the thing is, and I think the area where people get a little bit touchy on this subject is if people have just entered and they're buying up product and they're just thinking it's gonna rise in price because they've heard of it as an investment, that's when it becomes a bit more of a hostile environment for a lot of collectors. So that's just navigating it. But I don't think that, you know, all these people that are also entering the hobby, I do think a lot of people have genuine intentions, man. I think people are just finding it exciting. Like, I've spoken about this before, right? But I had a massive kind of thing about Pokemon cards where, you know, I was going through a very challenging time in my life, okay? And through that challenging time, I found so much connection with Pokemon cards, collecting them again, filling out binders. It actually provided a lot of like it was kind of therapeutic, okay? And I feel like so many people enter the hobby and they feel that same connection. It's like, oh, you know, I'm going through a bit of things in my life. You know, life hasn't exactly been like gone perfect, but you know, I'm finding a little bit of an enjoyment with this. You know, I like ripping open some packs. You know, I'm liking going to like these conventions, meeting people. You know, it's actually a nice kind of little pastime. And the thing is, and I can promise you one thing, especially, you know, if you're new to the hobby, Pokemon cards are like endless learning. It's actually a really cool place to be because, you know, it doesn't matter how much or how long you've been in the hobby, you're always going to learn something new. There's different illustrations. There's so many sets, so many eras of Pokemon cards, so many eras are coming out that it is so hard to keep up with it all. So people find like their little pockets of what they enjoy. So it's a great hobby and it's a fun hobby, but at the same time, you know, there's a lot to learn. And I think it can be overwhelming when you start, but the reality is as long as you're having fun in it and as long as you're enjoying what you're collecting and as long as you're not letting like the noise come in about, you know, this card, you can only like this card if it's super expensive, you know, learn to appreciate everything about it and you will find a good time in the hobby. Now, talking about another card that I found quite interesting is the Team Rocket's Moltres. Now, just in the 3 months, you can see it was selling right there for 180 US, dropped all the way down to $132. And of course, it's made a little bit of recovery, but I want to talk about that drop that I just showed you right there. The reason for that is because there was a Team Rocket's Moltres Ultra Premium Collection that got announced. Now this card is a special illustration rare within Destined Rivals, but what's really like interesting is that they made this Ultra Premium Collection and there's actually a guaranteed card, the exact same card inside that Ultra Premium Collection. The only difference is it has a Destined Rivals stamp on the card. Now, a lot of collectors, when they saw that it got announced, people just, you know, started selling this card. They're like, what a weird decision. I found that a very, very strange decision. I don't think I've even seen that before. I don't know why that they made a special illustration rare that you can pull from a set, a guaranteed promo. Sure that there is a stamp on one and the other one doesn't have a stamp, but I thought that that was a little bit lazy, okay? I thought that it was just like, you know what, copy paste, and I don't really think that if you're going to create a huge ultra premium collection, they have to be a bit more exciting than that. I mean, there's been 2 cases in the last few years that these ultra premium collections have flopped. This Moltres one to me is a flop, and the other one was the Greninja UPC that came out in 2024. That was a bad product. That was like objectively a really bad UPC. And also, sorry, there was also that Terapagos UPC. That also sucked. So we've had like a lot of like these ultra premium collections went from being so awesome, like the Charizard UPC, to kind of what we've gotten recently with them. They've been pretty disappointing. And then now we've got that Mega Evolution Charizard UPC that's coming out. That seems a bit better. That looks like a far more exciting set. You know, you do get unique artworks within it. So that's the reason why this one kind of fell down in price. Now, talking about, you know, Phantasmal Flames and all that, there obviously is the very interesting kind of dilemma that's happening right now with Phantasmal Flames booster boxes. Now, I personally think Phantasmal Flames is a weak set. I do not really rate the set that much other than the Mega Charizard. I think the Mega Charizard here, it's kind of confusing right now because the Mega Charizard, right? The chase card in Phantasmal Flames, to me, I think is the best looking Charizard card we've ever had, okay? You got Mega Charizard and then you got all its evolution line kind of down like in the artwork. It looks fantastic. So you've got this complete, you know, S tier artwork, just amazing, right? And then every other card in the set is like so basic and just decent. A lot of people were excited for Phantasmal Flames. You can see it was selling for $335 US, you know, back late September, which is just crazy, right? Right now, it's selling for $294, and I do think that it will continue to drop. That is my personal opinion. The reason for that is because it is a Charizard themed set. If you look at previous Charizard themed sets, they've gone through that same pattern of just being very hyped before they release, and then as soon as people see it, they see the pull rates, usually, you know, they're easier pull rates than people expected, and then the prices just go down, down, down. And you know, the Charizard sets or the Charizard themed sets are never the most iconic sets of an era. They're usually actually some of the most boring ones, like Sword and Shield. Like honestly, Darkness Ablaze is one of, you know, it's like Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze, and Sword and Shield base. They are D tier sets. Same with the Scarlet and Violet era. I would say Obsidian Flames and Shrouded Fable are both the, you know, weakest sets of Scarlet and Violet. And if it follows anything, maybe Phantasmal Flames will also be the weakest set of the Mega Evolution era. And what's interesting is the Inferno X Charizard, the special art rare, selling for $673, you know, when it released, went up to $717. Right now selling for $693. You know, the fact that the Japanese version is getting these crazy prices obviously has put a lot of people like questioning what is going to happen, you know, like for the future of this card. But I do think, you know, a lot of it just comes down to like, I would be looking at buying the actual English version of Phantasmal Flames. I'd be waiting, you know, a good 6 to 8 months before, you know, making any decisions on that, just to see the temperament. Now, that's, you know, that's just me going over like the history of the TCG and how I think it's going to go. But of course, I could be totally wrong. And the thing is, I also feel that 2026 will be a little bit easier to get product. That is my own intuition for the hobby. I just think 2025 had way too many things happen to make it like that. Too many opportune moments happened. Too many things aligned well to create demand. I don't think 2026 will have all those opportunities and everything just tick so perfectly. So we may see, you know, price drops within 2026. That is my personal opinion. But, you know, Pokemon cards right now, like I said, so in demand. So many people love them. You know, it's getting hard to keep up with the hobby. But the main thing right now, if you are collecting and you are enjoying collecting, is as well just, you know, keep up like a healthy pace with how you do it, because this new era that we're entering is new ground for everyone, okay? We're always gonna be excited when we enter a new era, but whenever you enter a new era, you do lose a bit of the fans that just kind of ended from the Scarlet and Violet, even though this Mega Evolution does feel like a continuation. So, you know, with these areas, I think 2026 will be a better year for collectors overall. I mean, I think we will see the days of being able to buy products in store again, and I do think that that time will come sooner rather than later. And the reason I'm confident about that is all to do with the cycles of this hobby. And I actually explain the cycles of the hobby in this video right here. Within this video on screen, I'll go over the cycles of the Pokemon hobby, and I explain why I believe this is gonna matter a lot in the future. If you enjoyed this video, click the video that's appearing on screen right now. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video.